Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Musings and Monologues. Over the past few weeks, I have been deliberating upon and debating about the role literature plays in the Indian contemporary scene and society. I personally know three principal languages spoken in India. I can read, speak, and write in these three languages: English, Bengali, and Hindi. I have been a close follower of Bengali literature and English literature. I'm afraid after Premchand and Renu, I have not come across any gems of contemporary Hindi literature because that literature is being consumed and subsumed by the popular lyrical poetry that is produced by writers who work both in films and in literature. But in Bengali, we've had a steady stream of writers post Rabindranath Tagore who have scored very successfully in creating literature that is worth substance and that can overcome the certitude of time. Especially, we remember the works of Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay and Jivanananda Das, who remain relevant to this day. The others, though mighty in their claim for being very contemporary writers, have not explored, unfortunately, the nuances of the language with such felicity of purpose that Jivanananda Das or Vibhuti Bhushan Bandyopadhyay in their prose works did. They explored the unknown realm of nature in Vibhuti and also in the works of Jivanananda Das, and they explored the psyche of a tortured human soul that distinguishes them and makes them more remarkable than writers who wrote in their times and were contemporary celebrities of much bigger hue and substance in the times they wrote in. But unfortunately, none of them have survived the test of time and become as relevant today as they were in the times that they produced their major works in. In contemporary Bengali literature, we have writers who've had very substantial careers, especially a writer like Sunil Gangopadhyay, who wrote prose as much as he did write poetry. In fact, he wrote more prose than he wrote poetry, and his prodigious talent was subsumed and consumed by speaking in a language that could contain the refinement of the present day society that he chose to work and write in. He never overcame the burden of language and explored new nuances and newer ways of expressing the unconscious and the subconscious. That was left to somebody in contemporary Bengali literature who is considered as the eminent other, Nabarun Bhattacharya, a writer who has written such epic books as Herbert. He is the only writer in the contemporary context, to my mind, who has overcome the structure of his times and thought and expressed himself in a language that is so finely nuanced and relevant in the contemporary context and will survive beyond his time. The other eminent writers of the contemporary period, one passed away just a few years ago, Sunil Gangopadhyay, the most prodigious talent amongst the contemporary Bengali writers, who wrote great works of substance, great historical texts also in Prathamalo and Sheishumoy. But unfortunately, Sunil Gangopadhyay or the others writing in his time, the eminent authors, remained authors of the present. They never explored the felicity of language and the fluidity of thoughts, subsumed in the subconscious and the unconscious, and evoking a language that is not spoken by the plebeian, by the commonplace. They always wanted an audience, a readership that could understand and be familiar with their language. They never imposed a structure of a new language pattern which could engage readers at a more deeper level, like the works of James Joyce. Given the context of the international auteurs of substance in today's day and time, we firstly remember people who are writing prose that is celebrated in languages other than the known Hindi and Indian vernacular languages. Languages which have created works of major substance, like the Czech writers Milan Kundera, Ivan Klima, the South American writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez. They all were trying to play with the language of their times and make it more relevant for ages to come after their prime works were displayed in contemporary society and winning great citations and awards. Of the Hindi literature, I cannot say much beyond the works of Premchand and Paniswaranath Renu, who were writers of eminence in their own times. But again, unfortunately, they have been lost in history as important relics, anachronistic to a new present, a present that is constantly revolting and redeeming itself by new expressions. The Indian writers in English, however, are a major exception. They understand the global context and also know how to use language in its most varied and interesting form. Apart from Arundhati Roy, most of the writers choose to live outside India and write about the Indian situation, the Indian predicament, much like what James Joyce did at the turn of the previous century, writing about Ireland, away from Ireland, living mostly in Europe, away from the island that he chose to cherish and articulate through the works that he wrote. Unfortunately, no such writer of that substance is to be found in contemporary Indian literature in vernacular languages. The language English reigns supreme today amongst authors of substance. Arundhati Roy, Salman Rushdie, Vikram Seth, Amitabh Ghosh, Rohinton Mistry, and their like. They choose to sparkle us and enamor us with the sheer fluidity of prose. Especially the work of Salman Rushdie must be celebrated in this context to create an international geography for the Indian situation, for the Indian predicament. Nobody matches the quality of his prose, the sheer felicity of listening to words spoken and articulated by him, the written words that have become texts that will remain permanent in the history, in the annals of history. Arundhati Roy also dares and defies language, much like her contemporaries. She chooses to probe into the social structure given the multiplicity of languages spoken in India and very evocatively, especially in her last novel, The Ministry of Utmost Happiness, produces work with such amazing dexterity and purpose that one is left astonished. Other writers have watered down most of the works of Vikram Seth, who started with such majestic gesture in the Golden Gate and his subsequent immediate works. The last work of substance that actually challenges language and creates a new idiom, I think would be in his work an equal music. Suppose that when Vikram said writes a suitable boy, he is giving in to the contours of established patterns and established mores, which are there in the works of the vernacular literatures and authors who have emerged from this subcontinent, works of them which retain their flavor and retain their substance in the Bengali language in today's context more fundamental and more wider depth and wider variety of language is found more in the writers coming from Bangladesh, more so from more than the writers coming in from West Bengal. Bangladesh, because it celebrates Bangla as its primary language, as its national language, has enabled artists living in that environment to actually explore modes and forms of expression. With due respect to the current scenario of Bengali writers, none of them have created a new idiom post the Tagore era the way Abhibhushan Bandyopadhyay and Jivanananda Das did in their prose works. The works of Jivanananda Das especially reflect a modern point of view, a modern mind, which is a postmodernist, post-structuralist universe that he creates and makes his characters inhabit. That is more of the inner space, exploration of that inner space that unfortunately is not there in the writers of today's day and age. When can we have vernacular literature again regain its supremacy, again regain its glory like it did in the first half of the previous century? I know very little other language, and I have explored the works of some significant writers like Muhammad Baikum Bashir from Malayali literature, Kamala Das from Malayali literature, and some works in Marathi literature. Apart from that, I have not come across any work of substance from any of the other vernacular languages, though I'm sure there must be a marginalized, unpublicized, and not so popular lot who have been striving to create new nuances and greater significance in the languages they work in. Where is the language that works and reflects itself in an international context from amongst the vernacular languages in India? That is a battle which we have to face and we have to be informed about. I would want if anybody could suggest to me the works astonishing in the variety of a Kundera, Ivan Klima, Gael Garcia Marquez, Uran Pabuk in the present day Indian context. I guess the misfortune of India is because it has a plethora of languages used for expression by writers working in that specific language. But have they been able to overcome international barriers and become truly works of greatness? I'm afraid I have not come across such literature. Maybe I am ill informed, but I would like to know more about literature that goes and discovers courage beyond the time they are produced in. They can create an awakening like a Ulysses did in English language or a Finnegan's Wake did in English language in the last years of James Joyce. Where is the Joycean or a Beckettian figure that is emerging from the literature that is being produced on a mass scale in the Indian context? Let us debate and talk about such literature of substance. Let us fetch out and find those authors who are working, I am sure, working in their splendid periods of isolation, in their moments of aloneness, who can articulate the new thought, the thought of the now and the thought of the tomorrow. I am not looking at American literature, which largely has been reduced to pulp fiction and produce works in the sci-fi genre. I'm not talking about time travel. I'm talking about the travel that language engages in. That is the travel which we want to explore in the Indian subcontinent. That is the tribe we are looking for. Where is that tribe? If you know of any, please advise me and please inform me so that I can engage in reading that work by that unknown author tucked away in some corner in the hinterland of India. I hope you will think about this and talk about works of substance from the Indian subcontinent. Thank you and have a wonderful day.